I mentioned before that I think the most important philosophical concept is what I consider the fundamental ontological perspective. Okay, so this is basically the mind-body problem. What is the nature of the mind? What is the nature of reality? And the basic answers to these would be like physicalism or materialism, which suggests that the reality is some physical or material concept existing in itself as physical or material. And that the mind is only something derivative of this physical or material world. Now, substance dualism or Cartesian dualism would say that there is this physical or material world that exists in itself, but the mind comes from the soul, some sort of separate nature, a separate substance from physical reality. Which, that the idea that the soul is some sort of separate substance from some inherently physical reality existing in itself is where physicalism and substance dualism differ. And it's largely the basis of religious debates. Is there a separate world of the soul? I think the whole framing of that is wrong. I've covered that plenty of times. And so then idealism basically says it's all mind, and that perceived physical world is only a conception of the mind. And so it's like, well, what does that mean? Is it, so does the physical world not exist at all and it's all a conception of my mind? Well, if that were the case, how would we meet? What would, who are other people? Are they just a conception of my mind and they don't exist in themselves? So that would be kind of like solipsism, where it's like, I am the only entity that exists. And like that would be kind of weird that the entire nature of all existence would create only this guy to be the entire construct. That just doesn't seem very viable to me. That can't be right. And if it is, like, why the hell is it doing that, man? That's even more confusing and really lonely. So like, what's up with that? And so, but then, that's never been my position. And then neutral monism would say there's one fundamental substance that is, where mind and physical reality are derivative from that. And what does that even mean? What's that one fundamental substance? And so, I think really the big point to get here is my position is kind of that there is a fundamental geometry and then that it's the mind that's working through this fundamental geometric patterning and feedback loops to create these different localized minds, but it's ultimately a non-local construct. And so what's any of that mean? And that's what I think is one of the biggest parts to get about all of this. And that's first you understand that a large part of the debate is between physicalism and substance dualism. Is there a separate soul? And so I think that's all framed wrong. And the biggest aspect of this is that there isn't just locally isolated interaction. So if you think about it, these both posit the idea of a mechanistic, machine-like universe with locally isolated interaction, where little parts are just isolated in themselves and only cause change in other parts through coming into construct through this basic arbitrary set of physical laws, through coming in contact through time and space. And so I think the big point to really understand here is that that's not the case, and actually everything is connected through the quantum vacuum feedback loop. And I highly recommend Nassim Harameyn's work and the Resonance Science Foundation, resonancescience.org, if you want to look into this. And the idea here is that you go down, we don't live in a world that's some physical reality where everything is in itself isolated and only contacts each other through local causation. There is a non-local, beyond space and time connection to everything, and that has to do with everything coming out of what they call this quantum vacuum. There's not isolated particles that exist in themselves in some material framework. Everything is coming out of this fundamental geometric patterning. So then you can really get into this and debate whether it's idealism or neutral monism or some sort of non-reductive physicalism even. But I think the more important key part, you got to understand these parts and then really grasp that the non-local causation and the non-local framework of it all, and that's what kind of gets rid of reductive physicalism and substance dualism, which is basically reductive physicalism with some weird arbitrary soul that just kind of works somehow. And that's all just a giant con to get people to debate in those realms without really grasping the bigger picture. Because one of the things you get with this bigger picture here is this relation to, it posits back in the ether. And then it shows kind of how certain ancient traditions made a lot more sense than mainstream religions, institutionalized religions, and mainstream science. And then it goes back and makes you wonder, so well, why do they all cover this up? I mean, so it's all can be seen through the philosophy that institutionalized religions and mainstream science are all kind of obscured this kind of basic philosophical construct. And we've kind of discovered now that those don't make any sense, but they don't really integrate that well. Why? Well, I think it's because when you go back and see how it connects all to these ancient spiritual traditions, and then see sort of common themes through these ancient spiritual traditions and their mythology dealing with other types of beings, something's going on here, and somehow we're being massively lied to about all of this, and the nature of reality, the nature of our own existence, our minds, consciousness, and our history, dealing with how advanced they were in the past, how they were able to build all these megalithic structures, why they built these megalithic structures as a means to cultivate the energy within the reality, because when you arrange and do the geometry, it creates, because all energy stems from this geometric patterning, and then when you really resonate with that geometric patterning, it creates these kind of energy systems. And I mean, I don't know all the details of why they did it, but I mean, why did they build these pyramids? Well, they were just dumb people with dumb beliefs, and so they just built these elaborate structures for some false belief of an afterlife. I don't think that makes any sense, and that's the mainstream view. And it's all covering up what happened in the ancient past, what they knew, who they were talking to, and really the entire story of humanity. And quantum entanglement, the idea of non-local causation, really connects that and helps us see that it's not physicalism or materialism, particularly reductive physicalism or materialism, and it's not substance dualism. There's some other construct going on which connects to ancient spirituality, and has to do with, I mean, they say the knowledge came from the gods. So what's going on with that? And then maybe these gods seem nice, they give us this knowledge, but I don't know. I mean, some of them don't seem very nice, and I think we're being massively manipulated, and it has to do with other types of beings involved, and so that's a big deal, I think. But, I'm just going to leave it there, and I mean, where was I going with this? I mean, it's grasp that the philosophy is really what connects it all. And that starting with, the nature of the mind, the nature of reality, and then realizing it's not locally isolated with a separate soul, or locally isolated that just kind of produces consciousness somehow as some emergent property. Arbitrarily. It just happened to do it. Nope! Something else is going on with a fundamental geometric concept, a feedback loop out of the quantum vacuum, non-local causation, interconnecting everything into one big picture. And that's the thing. So it's not all, there is a giant conspiracy here entire humanity is being deceived by these other type of beings. Maybe, that's my theory on it, right? I don't know. It's just a conspiracy theory. But it is. I won't deny that that's exactly what it is, but I think it's a pretty good one, and it's pretty well researched, I think. But it all has to do with the philosophy of it. And a lot of these people tell me I'm wrong when I talk about this stuff, but I don't think that, they don't posit any better a philosophical theory. They just stay trapped in one of these belief systems, which I don't think make any sense, and they haven't actually either supported them. No, I actually think this, and provided something that makes sense, or shown that that belief system somehow does make any sense. Because I don't think they know what they're talking about. But that's just my opinion, man.